All right, recording. Sweet. So welcome week 3. We made it. We haven't lost anybody yet. So that's always super good. The goal is to go home with everybody, as we say all the time. So we'll start rocking and rolling. We'll kind of go through again a couple of the recaps. Dan and Cam, you've already done that. Just a friendly reminder if you haven't texted me. Again, we have Dick Naramore who's on as well. He's one of our youth trainers, and then everything in our past president for CLOA. And then John is he's my everything person. He's my right hand, everything. And so John and I help with all the trainings. And then Al will probably be on. So for the new people, Al's in and out depending on whether or not he wants to be at work sometimes. Usually when he's at work, he jumps on for us. So it generally makes up our 4. You'll hear from a few other here and there. Again, friendly reminder, I think I didn't get a chance to check in your arbiter, but if you haven't set blocks, just write a little note for me and let's talk afterwards. If you still need help, Dave is starting to assign games already, even for you as new people. And so again, we want to get those in. I think Joe is sending out mentors extremely shortly. We just went through the list. We were confirming with some guys. And so we're also going to get you. Last year, we had, I think, 3 games with our mentees as well. We tried to do at least 2. We tried to do a couple JV games and then a youth game as well. And then if you have a little bit more experience, we sometimes wait on the back end game in May to maybe move you to lower varsity or a little bit more competitive JV. So again, to put blocks in for any day that you have conflicts. If you don't have any conflicts, again, I just use my example. I have if my boss ever sees this YouTube, but you get the point. I have a very flexible work schedule. If I can make my own hours, right? So I can go to Kent at 2:30 on a Wednesday. I don't prefer to travel that far, but I can, right? And so if you can get out, great. If you can't get out to 3:30, you need to put a block in for every day that is. And then same thing, the other questions have been Sundays are for youth. Saturdays will be for varsity games and JV games and youth games. So essentially, we're scheduling 7 days a week, just to remind everybody of that. And then this is the note from last year to go over the timing of the JV and the freshman games. Again, games can range, so don't just assume that in one day. I was just looking at a few of the game blocks. For Wednesday, we were starting at 2 o'clock and we went all the way to a 7 o'clock start on some Wednesdays, as an example, just for the beginning of March. So they're pretty wide ranging within that. So you might think of, hey, I'm going to get out at 4 o'clock from work and I have something at 7 o'clock and there's no way I can get a game. You might be perfectly slotted for a 4:30 game, 5 minutes from your house. Be able to get in and out 90 minutes, get to your event, whatever it is, recital, athletic game, all that good stuff. And then the uniforms as well. I think the Tim's list is really good from Texas as well. If you need some additional lists or items or help on that, the bigger thing again is start looking for the shoes and the prices, especially if you're going off Amazon. Those prices drop. Again, we're not buying shirts, but then you need your hat, and then again, any of that, the winter gear and things like that. Any questions on all that? That's all my housekeeping stuff for this week. Boring, I know. Game length again, just to go over, we ran out of time last year, so I just had this note in. But again, for JV games, we're going 10-minute stop or 12 run. We're going to ask the head coaches, that's plural, to what timing we're doing. Again, just a reminder on any kind of mercy rule is 12 goals. It starts only in the second half and then it's automatically running time and only stops under the standard timeout parameters, meaning a team timeout, an injury timeout, or officials timeout, or something like the quarter ends. We obviously stop the clock. We're not running in the fourth quarter. And then even if that team goes under that 12 goal mark, we're running the clock no matter what. Even if the team that was losing by 12 is magically up by 5, we do not stop the clock for any reason. And then again, we'll kind of get into that too. The last 2 minutes, we have stalling procedures and things like that, to not spend a ton of time here, but just as a reminder on those timing elements. Again, the pregame stuff, we're going to go through a lot of this. Rule 4 is like crazy dense and just a lot of stuff, so we'll go through it. Some of the pregame stuff, I always just like recapping from last week as well. Again, you will have a veteran person with you. So the way we try to teach a lot of this stuff is the things you're going to be thinking about and the things that are going to be preoccupying your brain, which is all of us. We have a capacity on how much we can operate with, is a lot of it's going to be like, oh man, I need to blow a whistle, or that's a goal, or man, this is really fast, or I don't know where to go, and things like that. You're not going to be worrying about and Lee said it last week of, do we have 7 pylons or 6? Right? As somebody like Lee or Chip who have experience, they might be at that level, but if you're brand new to it, it's getting the basics done. So your initial thought, like right on this list, is you just got to talk to the coaches, especially within a JV game. Sometimes it's hunting them down. Sometimes it's being overly friendly with them because sometimes they are a parent or they're running from a different job or they are, and this is the first time and I don't know if I think Chip was on our varsity team, but the first time I ever got it was our 2 coaches had to go to something and they said, guess what today is? It's your first game. Good luck. And they left me with the freshman team, right? Now I'm in charge. And then the officials come over, and that was Bajoris and Anderson, right? They come over and they go, do you know what an in-home is? And I go, you're lucky I'm even standing here, man. Like, help me, help you. What information do you need, right? I have no idea. And they're like, it's an attackman. I'm like, great. I'm like, oh, you tell me the in-home, right? So just work with them, be friendly to them, is give them the answers. You might be in that position as well. Nobody's above it. So just work with them, get all that in. And then again, we'll get through captains and a coin toss. I asterisk number 3 because at your levels, you're not going to have substitution coaches. I think this one's a little very advanced, is that you're at the prep school levels or college levels where you might be talking to assistant coaches and things like that. The table personnel is super necessary if we have them, especially at JV games. We might not have tables at JV games or youth games. And then just making sure the field is good. And then we want to start the game as on time as we can, right? We want to go home on time. We want to start the game on time. We want to be there on time. We want to go home safely, are all of our goals. I won't spend again overly talking about this, but we do a very unique in every game we play. We do a lineup. And so again, our lineup is we stand all 10 players for both teams and they face one another. The officials are at those corners, as you can see. You start by the goalie, who's number 13 on black, will always have their left shoulder towards the goal they defend. Again, we're doing a coin toss for alternate possession or the first goal to defend if you win the coin toss, and then the person, they get the first choice of that, and then the other team gets to pick the other thing. And then we then do a lineup. We keep them short, right? You'll get this again as you go through. You're going to have a veteran person. I keep mine extremely short, as I just say, and I like using first names. Some people like using last names or Mr. That's fine, whatever your flavor is. I say, this is John, this is Dick, I'm Rob. All we got to do is have fun and honor the game. Sound good? And they all look at me. They go, yeah. Some people like doing, if it's youth, of everybody smile, and then no kid has a mouthpiece in, and they go, you shouldn't be smiling at me. Where's your mouthpiece? Shove it in your mouth, right? And then they do that, and all the kids laugh. And then we send the goalies down the middle. They tap hands first. They go out of said tunnel or the chute, and then the players cross, as we said. And then everybody goes to their spots, and then we start the game as we go. Make sense on all that? And then we'll kind of do a little precursor. That's kind of all my larger housekeeping items. And our recap from last week, some of the important ones. We're going to talk personal fouls. We're going to talk face-offs. We're going to talk a lot of mundane Rule 4 stuff, which is game administration. So we're going to try to make it fun and a little bit of interactive the best we can. And we're going to go through that quiz in a few minutes here. Again, I say, especially when you get in JV, sometimes people are, again, even the players are not sure what's going on because this might be the first time they're playing or the first time they're on a high school team. Youth, you get a lot of this as well. It really depends on every game. I always come in, and this is a good in terms of our expectation and our mindset of going into all these things. We should give the same expectation to the players, and especially when we talk to the captains. And again, I've never been in a scenario where I pull out my card and I go, "Oh, you're number 3. You're not a captain. You're a captain. You can't talk to me." We're not that critical on it, but we'll lean on people, right? That would be. I feel like somebody probably has done that at some point, but we'll lean on them a little bit. If we see them and they're around us or they're asking us a question, let's lean on them, and because they can be part of our team. So when we talk to the captains, I'll tell them that you're also part of our team. Is we're going to make you a promise. You're going to come and ask us questions, right? If you have things, and then I promise you that I will answer your question if you're calm and it's a dead ball. And if I don't keep that promise, you remind me of this, right? On the flip side, and everybody uses a different word, I use knuckleheads, right? But your job is to make sure your knuckleheads remain anonymous to us as officials. Does that make sense? And they go, we know exactly who the knuckleheads are. And I go, great. I don't want to know who they are, right? Meaning they're not an issue for the game. And again, we tell them that. Same for the players. Don't chase that player away. Sometimes if you explain it, especially, and this is what comes in this training, especially at the youth game, even if you're a newer official, sometimes explaining the call, right, is massive. Is, hey, it was a slash. Why was it a slash? If they're yelling and screaming, you don't have to listen to it, right? But if they go, I don't understand. Don't say, get in the box. You're a terrible person. Get in the box. Explain it to them. You tripped them. That means your stick went between their legs. They couldn't run anymore. They fell down. It's a penalty. It's called tripping. The kid goes, oh, nobody's ever explained it like that. Not a problem, bud. I'm here all day, right? I'll continue to explain that. You hit them in the face. You can't hit people in the face anytime in life, even in lacrosse. Oh, right? So sometimes simple explanations go a very far way of what we're kind of doing, and to that, especially on the youth level. So with that, and look at that, 7:15 on the dot. We're going to go again over Rule 4, which is play the game and game administration. We're going to go over face-offs, which is part of that, which is a very unique thing within lacrosse. And then we're also going to go over personal fouls. I think personal fouls are actually the easiest part of tonight, going through all those. But we'll go through, we'll do a little activity, and then all that stuff. Sound good for a baseline primer on everything? Well, this slide, US Lacrosse had this in here, so I had to keep it. This is absolutely fantastic. I don't know why you'd ever put this in a slide deck of a kid falling asleep, bored out of their mind. That just tells you your slide deck isn't good. So I kept it because I think it's really funny and it's a really bad dad joke. Nobody's laughing with me, so Dan Brewer is. I appreciate that. So I think it's great. So again, our theme last year, I haven't come up with a theme this year for all of our officials, but it's whales, not minnows. That's what we're fishing for. We want the big things, not the small things. And that goes for the most veteran people all the way down to the most beginner of officials. Is we don't want to just be all about the very fine details within the game. Is the game is to go off, it's to be as fair as possible, as safe as possible. We want to get the big stuff, and if the little stuff, it depends on the scenario of the game, in my opinion. I'm not saying to not call things if you don't see it, but we don't have to go absolutely nuts on every single one of these. So without further ado, there's Hestrucks in the background. You probably can't hear it, but again, my 3-year-old is honking every Hestruck she has, and there's like 20 of them over there. So what we'll do, there's a whole bunch of you. We can go, I don't care what order, but take a whole bunch of them. You could do like one or we could do, yeah, we could do one or two in a row if you want. But we'll kind of go around, and we're going to answer all of these. This is John's absolutely brilliant idea. All of these correspond. There's 31 sections of Rule 4. There's a lot of them. So we're going to ask you one question per rule to then explain it. Make sense on that one? So if we read it, great. For some people brand new to the game, you're going to have no clue. If some of you who have done other sports, a lot of this is transferable, which is very nice. And then for others, this is going to be old hat. But again, the more we remember stuff, the better it is. So anybody want to start out without having me call? Who wants to take over number one?
I'll try it.
Go ahead.
All right. So isn't it visiting team calls the toss and it determines alternate possession or goal defended?
Yeah, super easy, right? Is we always do the visitors. So the easy way to remember this, I always say this is a good write down if you're kind of not a full scale mnemonic, but kind of a trigger person. If you travel, you get to make the call. If whoever traveled the furthest, so the home team doesn't travel, right? So if you travel the furthest, you get the honor of calling it, right? The old you fly, I buy kind of deal on that one. So if you get to travel, you get to call it. And then, as we said, if they win or whoever wins the coin toss, then they get first AP, or which I'm going to use that and not explain further on purpose because that is number 7. And then, or you get the first goal to defend, and then you defend the same goal first and third quarter, and then you defend the same goal, and we alternate the second and fourth. So
Now, was I correct in
go ahead.
it's or is it both?
You get one or the other. So if you pick first goal to defend, then the AP goes to the other team. If you pick first alternating possession, then the option of what goal to defend goes to the other team. So you get one or the other. Most teams will pick alternate possession, right, on that. I'm going to give a little 7 away, and we'll kind of explain that. It's a little bit of a strategy. Some people, depending on, I just use my example of one of the worst fields to play on, just the starting time. We just happen to do it is always around 5:36 is Madison at the surf club. The sun is right over the water. So it gets really, really bad, and they want the sun to be in the goalie's eyes for the first quarter, for example. So they'll pick that net on purpose, we see. Just an example. There's a lot of fields like that, but I just use Madison's as an example. Number 2, who needs to be in the lineup?
I'll take the layup. There needs to be are you talking about the lineup before the game? So that's the two starting teams.
Correct.
It has to be a goalie and then 9 other players.
Yep. And then what's the other person we're looking for?
Well, I guess a designated captain, right?
Not necessarily captain. What's the unique thing in lacrosse that we have? The first person in the book is called a what?
A goalie, right?
Nope, not the goalie. Somebody can jump in.
The in-home?
In-home.
Okay.
Right. We designate the first attackman in the book to serve any team penalties if need be. So we need that person, and they have to start.
Okay.
Yes, on the goalie, but the goalie's at the bottom of the book. I don't know why. I don't know. You're good. What's the only time a face-off doesn't occur? I'm sure there's multiple, but I think this is what we resulted on, John, right?
Yeah, there are multiples.
I just read that. I'm like, there's no way there's just one, but go for it. What's the most normal scenario that we don't have a face-off?
Are you talking like dead ball situations, like after a penalty?
Yeah, give me something.
After a foul.
Yeah, right. There's a time-serving foul, right, and there was possession at the end of it, so a little bit unique on that one. Could be a dead ball foul, right? I think the same scenario within that. Some kind of penalty that occurs or penalty time.
You got to be clear. You're talking about the end of the quarter.
Correct.
Right.
End of the quarter.
You're jumping through it. I think could be a little confusing for people.
Yeah. Do you want to take it then?
You want me to?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. So we're just talking about when do faceoffs typically occur, right? The start of the game and at the beginning of each quarter, right? So when would you not have a faceoff? You talked about if there was a penalty, in which case, what happened?
No, penalty with possession.
Right.
No face-off.
So an extra man situation, right, with possession at the end of a period that possession will carry over into the start of the next quarter, and it won't be a face-off. So it's not necessarily a penalty per se. It's a situation where the end of the quarter ends with an extra man situation. And that extra man situation could be that a team was up a man, right, and had possession at the end of the quarter, or it could be that there was a penalty that ended the quarter that created an extra man situation. So that is one time where you will not have a face-off to start the next period. Rather, it will carry over.
That's as long as there's possession. It's not a loose ball.
Yeah, do they have to have possession in the box for that, or just possession anywhere on the field?
Just possession.
Okay.
Just possession. Yep. And
so
they could.
Yep. So that's one situation where you would not have a face-off. Can you think of another one?
So I got a question. Would that include like a dead ball penalty in between quarters?
Yep. There you go. That's what I was looking for. Nicely done.
What if the team that has a man down has the possession?
Yep. Any team that has possession. So in that scenario, the defense, right? There's 5 seconds left. They take a shot, right? The ball squirts out on a rebound. The defenseman picks it up, runs away. The horn sounds. The defenseman has the ball in their stick. They get to start right there. We will move them outside of their attack area, right, or their defensive area into the alley, but they get to start right there when the next quarter begins. And then we'll flip the field, right, because they're going to change what goal they're now defending. So now we take them all the way on the other side of the field in a relative spot where that horn went off. And so it doesn't matter if it's the offense or defense. It could be the team that's man down or the team that's man up. Why you will see strategy-wise, coaches a lot of the times will yell, depending on how many seconds left are in the penalty. Let's say there's 50 seconds left in the penalty. They'll yell, hold it or don't shoot. And sometimes players don't listen. Sometimes they do listen, right? And so they'll hold it because they want to start the quarter, right, with that longer amount of time to operate with that man up scenario.
Just a question to clarify that
You're
one.
good.
So
Yeah.
if the defenseman has it down by his own goal, by GLE, let's say, right outside, that's where it starts on the next quarter, not at the
Yep.
midfield.
So in that scenario, we'll just use this. So if they have the ball, let's say right here, right, this defenseman, we're then going to flip this over. I don't know if this will let me do it. Maybe if I find it really quickly. What I literally do is I take my scorecard and I write on the back of our scorecard as a field. And then I take this is a age-old secret. And then I take my card and I flip it. I literally physically flip it. We did it on Saturday. And everybody laughed at me still because I literally write it and then flip it and go, this is where we're starting. So we were here. Now we're actually going to be down here to the left of the goal since they are now defending the opposite goal. And they'll start right there.
So they have to get it outside the restraining area to get it to start at the midfield.
Correct. Yep. And so just a control within a scenario of a regular restart will allow the defense to start in their crease. They're allowed to start. They're allowed to start in that area. They're also allowed to move it outside. They have an option. Some want to start right away, which is fine. What we generally don't want, and I say the lower level we have, a youth player who we know we might have seen in the third quarter, they've dropped it 62 times. That's fine. They're learning. The last thing you want to do is put them right in front of their goal, blow the whistle, and that player drops the ball again, right? That's not fair to that player. Move them out, right? But if we're talking higher skilled players and they go, sir, I'm ready, we can blow the whistle and go as long as we have nobody within a 5-yard radius of us as well. Sound good?
Rob, you've been generally telling them to take it outside the box when it's a carryover to the next period, right? Have you been at any level seeing them start inside the box? No, right?
Not a lot. We had the same thing last Saturday. They asked if they could, and then we kind of said, you can if you want. And then the coach said, well, that's probably a bad idea, right? We said, yes, coach. Right. And this is at the college level of you just have more room. There's less chance for error if we start outside, right? In a very controlled scenario like that of just start 5 yards this way. Just come give yourself some space just in case, right? But it's their option if they want. Very, very seldomly. And again, we could be a little forceful if we know, again, skill set or it's the team that's, behind by 10 goals of why don't we come out here? Well, I don't want to come out here, right? Trust me, you want to come out here. Good.
Certainly the offense is never going to start in the offensive box.
Correct.
You're going to have to move out. One other quick question. Would the possession in the extra man opportunity at the end of the period carry over into overtime?
No, because it's a new game.
This is not the Super Bowl, okay? This is not the Super Bowl. Do you hear when he said that and everybody was like, what was that? And I'm like, there was something funky going on with it, right? It does. It's a continuation. We play, think of the Super Bowl as a great example. Think of a regular season game as the way we do it. It is the same game. We're just adding an extra period at the end or multiple periods.
So yeah, extra man will carry over into an overtime like it would at any other period.
We'll skip 4 because we'll talk about it for time's sake. 5, how would we define possession? Somebody take a stab.
In most sports, it's control and time of possession. In other words, you have to have control and making in this case, a lacrosse move.
Yep. And then how do we define the lacrosse move?
advance towards the goal, defend outside, go towards the crease, something of that nature. If it's offense, if it's defense, it's advance. Yes, you're cradling it back and forth.
Yep. So a
But
cradle, and then there's two other options. So I have the ball in
pass,
my stick, a pass, or
a scoop, or whatever it's termed, I forget.
so it's not
If it's
not
loose and
not a scoop, right? So if I'm
yeah,
scooping, think of if the
yeah,
ball's still on the ground and I'm scooping, I can't make a lacrosse move, which is a
right.
dodge, right? I can't pass it. And then what's the goal? What's the goal to of lacrosse? To score what?
Score, just
Goals,
score.
right? And so I
Yeah,
have to shoot. So think pass, shot, or dodge, right? So scoops are not possession, right? But think of if I have the ball and I'm able, to your point, which is perfect, right, to make a move, which is my timing factor, and then my move is defined by three things: dodge, shot, pass, right? Awesome. Tricky question. Let's have a basketball person do that. Is the line out of bounds or football? Either one.
it is out of bounds in basketball. If you touch it, it's out of bounds.
Yep. So we're out of bounds in lacrosse, but we then make it even weirder where you can become airborne and you can save the ball. It is not a plane. So it has to touch something out of bounds, including the line. So kind of
Same,
unique, right? Right in that scenario, or same in
same in
basketball.
basketball, though. Same in
Excellent.
basketball. If it's crossing and you're airborne, you can control it to get it back in before it's physically out. So
Awesome. AP, right? Alternate possession. I'll just kind of move these a little bit for time's sake. So alternate possession is this idea that we award. So again, think basketball, the toggle, right? Or the arrow, the possession arrow, right? We have the same. We generally only use alternate possession if we cannot determine who gets possession, right? So it's generally a official's error. Then we go to alternate possession. There are some really wonky ones that are in there for the sake of this class. It is if we can't determine whose ball it is, right? Is that in a scenario where you just had there's an injury. This is the most common I see even in the college game. There's an injury, we think it's serious, the ball is on the ground, right? And we blow the whistle, or we accidentally blow the whistle and the ball is loose. We have to go to alternate possession. We can't determine whose ball it was, right? There wasn't one team entitled to it. It wasn't like a team kicked it out of bounds. We know it went off of white, it's going to go to blue. We have no idea when we blew that whistle. So again, why we hold our whistles a little bit to try to figure out who possession is going to be, or give a chance for somebody to become entitled for that possession, especially in an injury or something like that if we don't think it's serious. A goal, what's our definition within lacrosse? Similar to hockey. Where are my hockey guys?
let's cross the plane.
All the way across the plane, completely across the plane, right? It cannot, the one myth, I feel like, Lee, I'm just totally going to yell at you at this one. I feel like you have this question coming out of what happens if it hits three posts? That is an urban legend. I don't know why. I'm just picking on you. I feel like you're going to ask that for some reason. Is it physically can't, it needs to go fully across, right? It can hit the crossbar and go down. We just saw this weekend on a few ESPN games. It can hit over that plane, literally hit the grass and bounce out, right, in a very quick succession, or hit a part of the net and come out, but he's going entirely across the plane for it to be a goal. We
One
cannot
change in the
go
rules
ahead.
on goals for this year, so you wouldn't see it in last year's rule book, is that if the goalie, for example, has the ball in the cross, bends, the stick back to, to set up to a pass, and the ball is in the stick behind the line in the goal and then falls out of the stick into the goal. That used to be a goal under Federation rules forever. They changed it this year and it's not. So you're going to see that in the 2024 rule book, and people are going to wonder sort of what the heck's going on. But in that case, it's just a turnover to the other team. That's a weird one, but you could potentially see it at the lower level.
So you can drop the ball yourself into your own goal and it doesn't count?
Not intentionally. If you unintentionally have possession and you put it back and then it falls out in the goal, it would not be a goal. That's correct. That's a rule change this year. And I don't think that rule change is going to last very long, but right now it's in the 2024 book.
That only apply to the goalie though?
No, it would apply to any defensive player who legally had possession of it, and that happened.
Okay.
It's similar in a scenario where if you had a flag down, unlike hockey, where you cannot score a goal if there's a flag down. If in your
Against
end,
yourself.
right,
Well-
against yourself. So similar to an empty net in hockey, it's the opposite, right, where you can score in an empty net in that scenario. You cannot do it in lacrosse, which is
So
odd
that's
to us.
so that's not just from in the crease. If I'm a defenseman and I get it on the side and I reach back to him and make a long pass and it goes and the goalie's not looking, it doesn't count.
No, the situation Rob was talking about is if there's a flag down or there's
Oh,
a
okay.
pending penalty on the other team, you can't score against yourself if there's a penalty sort of pending against the other team.
Gotcha.
But you
Gotcha.
certainly, if you pass it back to your goalie and he misses it and goes in the goal, you scored against yourself and it's a goal for the other team.
Okay.
And so again, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, Rob, the place you'll see that if you're doing U8, U10, little kids games, they're not strong enough to hold the stick. They've made the save. The stick comes back in with the ball in possession, breaks the plane, and the poor little kid can't hurl it fast enough, and it falls out. Even before this rule changed, we always told everybody, don't don't make that a goal, because it's ineptitude, it's not intention. So
Dick, well, how do you administer that? So let's just say that scenario happens, then do you just does the goalie get the ball back and then they keep playing?
you give it to the goalie. Just put it in the goalie's stick outside the cage and let him try again.
Well, yeah, this year it would go to the other team.
Right. In high school. In high school. Sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, so a few of them we'll go over again. You guys have those questions too. We'll go over these right throughout the night and in advance too. A lot of these kind of overlap as well. So once we get past, I always say like once we get past 10, they get super, super nitty gritty. So just make sure you read through them. It might take you a few times to read through them as well. So piece out some of this rule book as well as we're going through each week on these items. One of the items too, part of this game administration is that we have a lot of timing counts, right? So we'll go over what the timing counts for advancement are within the game, but the game itself, and again, this is a varsity, if we were doing 12 stop, but if we're doing running and JV, it's a little different. There's a maximum of 8 timeouts, and then there's 14 total minutes in terms of breaks. Between all of this items, your games can run an hour and 40 minutes, a lot, right? In a varsity game, which makes sense. JV games can take that as well. We've seen some games take 2 hours, right? Where that kind of comes in, and good note to kind of think of too, is honor hustles, right? Is what they call it. I think what I'm going to do, give me 2 seconds. Let me just do reshare. My apologies. Make sure we click sound and optimize sound on this one, but we're going to redo that. And so, come on, keep playing for me. What's our initial impression of what's going on here?
It's not playing. It's not playing, Rob.
Well,
but from the initial video, he was casually walking back toward the center. Do you want to be on the hop?
All right, let me try one more time. My apologies. Let's do this one more time.
There you go.
Going for everybody.
That's good.
What are our initial impressions here? If I'm watching that in the stands, what am I feeling towards that official?
He's just lackadaisically going after the ball and then walking toward the center. But
Right.
the other official threw a pretty long pass too, because you can't see him in the screen. So he should have walked over a little closer.
Can't see him, right? And to that same point, right, we go back, and I wish this one was a little bit longer and a longer shot, but that's what they gave us of, right, that took 18 seconds, that entire clip, right? They want, and it's doable, right? Then the time the goal is whistled to the face-off going off, 20 seconds, right? So that was, the goal is called, right? Tweet, whistle, fish the ball, throw the ball, and then we see it coming into frame. Then we start 20 seconds. It's like a 45-second face-off, right? Some games can have 30 or 40 goals. As simple as that sounds, add 30 seconds, right? Times 40 goals, you're there for an extra 20 minutes. That's a long time, right? And again, think of where I kind of come into this too. If you're getting your butt beat in a game, an extra 20 minutes means you're going to start wailing on somebody, right? You're going to start getting more frustrated if you're in that scenario longer. So little simple things like this that we can help speed up, right? Have the players be waiting, right? Excuse me. We should be waiting on the players, not the other end around, right? They should never be waiting on us. Make that clean pass. We're allowed one bounce pass. Make it a bounce pass. Make it an underhand throw. The worst thing ever is in the sun. We have, I'll just totally pick on Sean because he's our baseball guy. We have somebody throwing overhand 80 yards on a rope in the sun. I don't need that in my life. I played stick sports all my life. I can't catch a ball, right? If I have a stick in my hand, different scenario, right? Bounce it, take your time, catch it, immediately go. Again, we have timing constraints. The one quick story I'll tell, and this happened on Saturday, these are two college teams. We had the timer on all day. And a few times we warned them, they were very close. And sure enough, in the third quarter, and this is a scrimmage scenario, same thing. The one team has 3 extra players on the field. The beeper goes off. We go tweet, 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 delay a game because they have 20 seconds for once the ball is at the faceoff when we're ready as officials. They only get 20 more seconds, and that's it. At this point, we still have extra people on the field. Tweet, tweet, tweet. We point. I already have one partner running down to where they should be. The second partner blows it in. The coach is yelling, "This is a scrimmage. What are we doing?" "Coach, we're ready for the season. We can't wait on you all year." Well, that's a good point. Then what happens the next face off, you have everybody running to their spots. And we had literally, it took us 15 seconds from goal to the face off going off, right? So we have a scenario where it takes 40, we penalize somebody, and magically everybody gets the message, right?
Yep.
A ton of times we see, it's crazy how that works, right? And so simple things like that of getting yourself, again, this all comes back to, as we're doing this, we want you, the number one goal for us officiating is getting you home safe, right? The 20 minutes or 30 minutes or 40 extra minutes games take, things can go sideways, right? So the quicker, and again, we're not cheating the players, right? We're just saying we're going to pay attention to all these small details, right? Without going overboard and going nuts as well. So these little things do help within our context, right? Perfect. So we are 4, like I said, had a lot. We'll continue to kind of go over those as well. We're going to move on to, I think, face-off we have coming next. Time-wise, we're doing super good. But as we'll continue practicing, next week we have a whole bunch of them as well. Start practicing, and this will be your homework. Start practicing all the different signals. Do it in a mirror. Do it in front of somebody. If you want to FaceTime somebody, that works too. Record yourself. That's not bad, even if you do a self FaceTime, like on your camera, works really well. But all of these things kind of matter. I love this one. This is my favorite little random meme that US Lacrosse came up with, because again, these are all things that are not necessarily rule-based that we can be thinking of, like if my partner, so if John is reporting a penalty and I say, "Hey John, we have blue 14 on a trip, it's 1 minute." I should go set up the field, right? John's going to go over the bench and report that. We can start getting everything together. "Hey, players, this is what's going on. The ball is here. Hey, White, it's going to be your ball. Outside, goalie, the ball is here. It's going to be 1 man, 1 minute. We're going to wait," right? Little simple things in communication. And again, we'll help you practice when we get to the clinic as well. We're going to do these mechanics and we'll have you practice these things, but really simple things. And again, I know they're not rules based, but as we continue teaching you guys, we see these are the items that we struggle with more than actually knowing what a slash is, right? A lot of times, awesome, I threw my flag, I blew my whistle, I got the correct call, nobody's yelling at me. And then it takes us a minute to get the field ready, right? Or worst case scenario, our partner comes back and they go, "Cool, where's your flag?" And they go, "Oh, it's all the way down the field," right? Go get it. Go get it, get the ball, get everything set, right? And we've seen that scenario too, where all the players are ready, everybody's ready to go, And then we go, where's the ball? And all the players go, we don't have one. Find a ball, right? Use that dead time to then get everything up and running. Questions on anything? I'm going to take a super small break to ask for questions. We're going to move to face off. So we're going to go to something totally different than game administration, even though it's within the same rule. Questions on anything? Excellent.
Rob, just to over communicate, just for all the leadership here, like, what do you guys think is the right number of seconds between goal and setting it up? Because in football, we're all lazy and we sit around bullshit in between touchdowns. You guys are like 15 seconds, let's go. The lead should have the ball, throwing it up to the trail who's now going to administer the face-off. Is that fair?
Yeah, like
Okay.
I'm not even joking, 20 seconds.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
We got, and again, I always tell this horror story. We don't do this in our association. So please do not take the message of, oh my goodness, Rob is going to be out there with the stopwatch. But when you go to things like evaluations or tryouts and things like that, they time you. It's scary. It's really scary because they time you and they tell you. We were at an evaluation in the fall. Our crew was 16 seconds on average. They had all 40 face-offs, every single one timed. And they tell you, you can go over 20 seconds. Good, right? And so part of that, in a two-man game, we get to throw the ball, right? In a three-man game, which is, again, is the more advanced level, is the person who's calling that goal is running up. So it's that sprint up, right? It's a jog behind by the other official and seeing what's going on. Same thing here. Get the ball, come in, right? Part of this too, and again, we'll go over positioning and things like that. To that point, we want to kind of guard against a lot of heated scenarios, right? We want to try to take some of the pressure off. So us standing there, people are not going to say stupid stuff, right? Think about just ourselves. And when our parents were around, you're never going to say, you're never going to curse somebody out in front of the teacher. But as soon as that teacher turns their back, it's MF everybody who's near me, right? So being there, being present, you can come in real quick, you can grab a ball. That to that point makes a very short toss, 10 or 15 yards, I catch it. Now I turn around and I run to the center, and now my partner, who now just had the goal, they're now watching the pile. So we're always watching the pile, we're at our spots, and if we have nice, clean signals, everyone will jump on board very quick to that point.
And at that point, when it gets to the midfield, that's when the new trail is going to turn on their timer. So if you can get the ball up to midfield quickly, then you can start your 20-second timer quickly and then keep the game moving.
Correct. And to not overharp, but to your point, like we've done college games, which are 15-minute stops with full half times and everything else in an hour and 40 minutes. I've seen JV games take 2 hours, which are 10-minute or 12-minute run times, right? Right. So it's you're not getting paid more by staying there longer, right? We need you there safer. And again, longer games go, the more tensions usually build in all of my experiences, because it's usually something's not going right. So again, on our face-offs, our expectation is simple. Our singular goal in a face-off, we'll explain what it is exactly is. Our goal in the face-off is simple. We want a face-off to go off and go to conclusion. That's simple every time. As officials, I don't want guys to be penalized. I was a face-off guy, so I cheated to like the best of them, right? And Coach Chip knows as well. Everybody called him face-off Rob, right? And so we cheat. Everybody cheats on face-offs, but we want it as fair as we possibly can within reason, and we want the players to play. This is a unique sport. This is similar to, I'd say, something like a closer in baseball or a kicker in football. This is a specialized position. Players will go to college and play this position. I joke that my entire career, I played 50 some odd games in college, and I literally played 4 minutes, and that was it, right? We're on and off the field. That's what we do, but we're super hyper specialized, right? So our goal is to get it off the best we can, right? That's fair. And we also want to communicate. The lovely thing that is still in the high school game is we can make verbal corrections to the players. That means we can ensure that we get it as fair as possible before we conduct the face-off and before we then conclude the face-off. So our idea is to be quick, but not fast. And this goes throughout our entire time as officiating. We can go quick, but controlled, right? We don't want to rush, but we want to, again, match the tempo of the game. If the game's going quick, we want to be at that same pace. If the game's going slow, we want to get it to quick as well, so we can keep everything moving. So part of that, and I know this sounds out of order, but I kind of like doing it in the exact chronological order, is in high school games, and you might not do it in youth games, and that's okay. I always say my personal take is we're allowed to coach a little bit on the youth level. If it's a really high level U14, we're maybe not coaching, right? But if, again, to Dick's point, if this is U10 or U8 and the kid comes out, and I say that affectionately, and comes out and goes, "Sir, this is my first face-off ever." You go, "Excellent. I'm super jazzed, right? I'm going to help you this entire way. We're going to get through this together." It goes, "Great, because I have no idea what I'm doing." You go, "Excellent. I'm super stoked," right? We will help you to the best that we can, right? And so within the high school setting, we get to talk to the face-offs players. So what I generally tell them, I go through is, again, the veteran person is going to do that pre-game with them. You'll be there, especially in a JV game. We still want to talk to them. I am very to the point because face-off guys don't listen. No high schooler listens. And the longer you talk for 3 and 4 minutes, the more they drone you out. So if you're quick and to the point, the answer is, hey, we want a clean face-off. What that means is we want to blow a whistle and have no fouls. What we need your help on is you need to come down. There is a large laundry list of items that need to occur. You need to know what they are. If you don't know what they are, go ask your coaches right now and your other teammates. You're going to come down as legally as possible. You're going to listen to our directions. If we tell you something, you're going to make that adjustment. We're going to give you time. We're going to do a down, which we come down together. We're going to then say set. There's no more movement. We're going to blow a whistle. And we're going to do that 40 times today. And that's how it's going to work. And we're going to coach you through it on the dead balls. In a scenario, if there is a violation, it is very simple. If it is not your ball, I will simply say, my whistle is someplace. We had early, it's blue ball. If you're a team blue, you're going to pick up the ball. If you're the opposite team, you're going to drop the ball. If you want an explanation, the next face-off when you come out, we will give it to you. But we will not give it to you right then and there because we need to start the game. Do we have any questions? That's my entire pregame for the face-off, guys. That's it. Straight to the point, we continue moving. And we give them solutions where they can also talk to us as well. We then ask them. I generally make a habit. We usually do it at halftime for the first, at the end of halftime, the first third quarter face-off. We will ask them, how's everything going? And they'll tell you. What they also do too, this is my favorite because I was a face-off guy, they won't tell you in front of the other guy. "Sir, you know the other guy's leaning really bad and he goes early every single time he's holding my stick." "Excellent. I'm going to address that when you're both here." "Well, don't do that," right? When they get there, you talk to them. That's simple. "Hey, we got some concerns about leaning. Let's not lean here. We're going to be looking for leaning next time. Got it?" And then all of them go, "Okay," because that guy's probably leaning too, right? So understand that they're cheating and they're trying to game the system at all times. Our goal is to be as concise as we can and as fair as we can. For the sake of this, and again, we'll show you a picture in a second, but we have a lot of things to worry about. US lacrosse boil it down to 7. The rule book is infinite on the amount of items that we do. This is and again, this is my opinion. This is the only position in all of sports that we highly regulate every single thing you do, including how you hold your stick. There's no other position. We don't tell quarterbacks they can't throw a sidearm or that pitchers of baseball can't throw a lefty. Face-off guys, we tell you exactly how you do it. You have to do it righty. You have to hold your stick in a certain manner. You have to hold it now with your palm up in that scenario, not on the plastic. You have to be ready. So when we tell you to go down and down together, it's fairly coming down at the same time within reason. The point of that is that people would wait. I would wait for my other person to set up, and then you could go and counter move already and figure those things out. We're going to go through what's called tops to stops, which is you want the heads, they're 10 inches. The ball is going to be in the middle, and you want evenness for both players where the ball is in the center of that cross. We then have this magical thing called the neutral zone, which is above those face-off heads and those lacrosse heads and the parts of the stick. That has to be nothing within there. So if we stand behind at a 6 o'clock or a 12 o'clock, we can see straight through that window. There's nothing in that window all the way up to infinity on that one. We then want our stick parallel to the line. We also want our hands have to be wrapped around, touching the ground, but not touching the line. That's a lot of stuff already, and I still got more. You also don't want your head of your stick to be leaning, but your helmet can be over the line. It can't be in the neutral zone, meaning right or left, but it can be over the line. Confusing. We're aware. And now you can't have any other body parts except for your hands and your feet touching the ground. No knees, no elbows, no thighs, no butts, no anything else can touch the ground. Simple, right? Can everybody repeat all that back instantaneously for me? Of course you can, right? There's a ton of stuff. We will get to that picture in a second. We then go through the cadence of all this. This is the simplest part. This is what you can really, really work on. And you can work on, you don't even need an actual lacrosse ball. You can take any object that's in your house, right? You can literally take, I have glass cleaner spray, and you can pretend this is a ball, and you can do your whole face off and practice it. And this is what we're going to ask you to do this week, is you're going to place the ball down on the ground. This is different for any of the old school guys where we mix it up and we had different things, but we're going to place the ball on the ground. We're then going to bring the players towards the ball, but they are not allowed to go towards the ball yet. Whoop, excuse me. And so they're going to be standing up, as we say. We then ask them to go down together. Once they go down, they get a half a second or a second to make an adjustment. If they move a leg or something, it's not a penalty yet because we're not ready. We can make any verbal adjustments at this point. Be very specific. I generally will tell both players to do both things, if that makes sense. Some guys say, White, you just know a little bit to your left, and then if you just move it, it'd be great. I have no idea what you just said. I have zero idea. Players, move your helmets out of the neutral zone. Move your stick to your left, both of you. Clear, concise what it is. I need to see tape. That means hand off the plastic. White, your knee is on the ground. Very concise. Give them a chance to adjust, right? In that scenario. Then, when we think everything's ready to go, we say set. And then we blow a whistle. Part of this, too, is we're going to do all of this once we're done with the verbal corrections from set to whistle with the whistle in our mouth. So we will need to start practicing with whistles in our mouth throughout, that we can still talk and communicate as effectively as we can, even though there's a whistle in our mouth. White, your knee needs to go to the left. In that scenario, if I have a lot, I will now take it out. White, knee to the left. Set. But you have to be comfortable with that, right? It is a quick cadence. The more you get through and the more you practice all of these things, these are the simplified things that we can take a lot of control of, right, as officials, that aren't necessarily rulebook items.
And you want to learn how to blow the whistle without spitting the whistle out.
Correct. Questions on any of that? That is a lot very, 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 very quickly.
Rob, do you use a finger whistle, or do you guys use lanyards?
You can. I don't have it down. I use a lanyard or the Smitty whistle. The same, I think, where basketball guys have too, and I think some football guys too. So the little lanyard that goes and clips on your thing, I use that. I tell my horror story again. I grew up officiating in the mean grasses of Indiana, where it was all grass and mud. And a million times when I first started, as John said, I would go, okay, down, set, White, you jumped. And then I spit my whistle, and then I go to restart my whistle somewhere in the mud, and I have no idea where it is, and it's probably still there 15 years later, right? And I did it like 4 times in a row, and it was awful. I personally, guys will use it, right? You want it in your mouth. Some guys will do the finger whistle up the whole time. I think that looks a little bad. I will use that so I know I can drop my whistle freely without any fear of it losing it. And then I have my finger whistle ready to go. So I will sometimes have that finger whistle, as you said, say what that penalty is. And again, it's usually when that penalty or infraction occurs, right? I'll drop it and I might restart with my finger whistle, believe it or not. So I'm actually using 2 whistles in a very short cadence, but I've kind of controlled or taught my brain to say it's okay on a face-off to drop that whistle every time out of my mouth without fear of I don't have anything else. And then the nice thing, it gives you that backup whistle as well if a whistle does break. We've had enough scenarios, especially on face-offs. You say possession, it's always a pull. Sorry, poles. Pole always runs by and knocks your whistle off at some point. And at some point, you'll just have the finger part and no whistle part. It's going to happen in your career. Happens to all of us. It's awful. You got to blow your whistle. There's nothing there. You're like, oh, that's not good. Very good question.
Yeah, it's a little more detailed, but I didn't see it in high school. Do they have to have the contrasting tape color on the neck? I know they do in college.
Yes, it needs to just be contrasting color. And why I answer it like that, the shaft itself could be a contrasting color, which is then okay. So within this scenario, right, if this is white, this shaft is no good. If this is all gray, let's say, it's actually okay in the high school game. At this point, almost everybody has tape. If we get to the youth or a JV game, they might not have, and again, we use like lime green, hot pink, like really vibrant colors on purpose because then you can see it very nicely. Don't go chasing a JV kid. Like if there's no pink tape on site, we're going to play the game, right? The best we can. If it's everything's all black, we might say something to coach of we might need a different face-off stick. Also at those levels, especially JV or youth will use whatever stick mom and dad bought them, and that's the only stick they use. At JV games, there might be one face-off stick for the whole team because it's a different. The entire parameters are the same, but it's got a little different quality where it's a little bit more bendy or strung differently. At the varsity game, somebody has tape. I don't know how many times I've said it. Oh, we don't have the equipment box today. Okay, guess who's got brand new lime green tape? The people across from you during this pregame face-off thing when we're checking it. Go ask the other team to borrow some green tape. They go, oh, that's a good idea. I go, yeah, we're going to work on interpersonal skills today. It's okay. And they laugh. They look at me, right? I'm like, just go do it, right? And then if it's really a hard time, again, I can do this, right? Because I've been around for a bit. I'll literally go ask the other coach, oh, hey, we need lime tape for the other team, right? We're doing this correctly today. It's in the spirit of the game, out of the game. Give the kid a roll of tape. He'll return it, right? But to that point, yes, the idea is that we can see it. So this is your general face-off setup, right? Again, this is a little bit older, so the knee on the ground is no good. The feet on the ground is fine. They're both hands up, which is good, but we're tops to stops in terms of that. The ball's in the middle, up to, but not touching the line. Again, this neutral zone is clear. They can lean over the line, but they can't lean to the right. Again, this neutral zone is everything in both directions, both up and both 12 and 6 o'clock. So there's no legs, there's no knees, there's no hands in those heads of those sticks. A lot of items.
Yeah, all body parts are to the left of the throat.
Watch out for the toes.
We'll do this in the clinic. Do not kick a kid. Do not ever kick a kid. I know I've said that 6 times and everybody laughs at me. If you need them to move, you verbally do it. And the one we'll show you, we'll probably use the clip from last year. Literally, we got officials from a different state to give us video because they were officiating. They're officiating now in the high school season. First face-off of the year, the official kicked the kid's leg, told him to move it to the left. Don't kick a kid.
Or kicks the stick. Don't do that either.
Don't kick anybody. Like that's assault. Like it's literally you can't kick a minor, right? Same thing is don't touch them. The only time I say it's okay, and again, we'll do this in the clinic. If you need the helmets to move, you place your hands on both, and you can move gently, if that makes sense. I will do even if I move one, and I'll do it with my hands on purpose. I'll move one, but I'll still have my other one placed on the head, if that makes sense. And the helmet's the only one I think is okay because sometimes they don't realize how far over they are. So if it's just simple and we can move them a little bit, right? We can do that. But again, I'll verbal 99% of everything. Make sense on that one? We just don't want to touch the players. And again, I laughed because John and I were like, we're a joke, don't ever kick the players. And then we got the video and the literally first face off of the year, guy kicks the kid. I'm like, what are we doing? Drives me up a wall. Wing players. I just go to this one. So again, face-offs are 3-on-3 in our sport. There is a man currently in the penalty box, and that's why we don't have an extra wing player. Again, this is getting a little advanced, but we have this thing called a restraining line, which is on the 30-yard line. So during the face-off, there's only 3 players on each team within this area from the 30 to the 30. And then when we start the face-off, there's only 2 face-off players, and we have these additional players on each team are behind what we call the wing line. And until the whistle goes, they cannot go over the wing line. They can go anywhere they want within this imaginary box here. They can run, they can jump, they can do jumping jacks, they can lay down, they can do whatever they want. They just need to be within that box when we do that face off. They just can't cross the line until we blow the whistle on that one. And they can't interfere with one another. We've seen that. You can't hug the other guy or things like that. All stupid stuff, right? I've seen it all. Go ahead.
Can their stick be over the line?
Their stick can be over the line. That's a great question. The stick does not count. It's just them as a player there. That's a really good question. In the scenario, if we still have a time-serving foul, then again, we don't bring anybody up. For the old school people, you remember when we did that, we actually have what we call a man down face. So in this scenario, there's one white player in the box, in the penalty area, in the table area, excuse me, 3 blues versus 2 whites. This will be 3-on-2 until the face-off concludes. Question for the audience: what makes a face-off conclude? Couple scenarios. Possession.
A whistle, like if there's an illegal action.
Yep, a whistle. Any kind of foul.
Hold on. A whistle meaning what?
Oh, poor John. John's got his hooks in you. I'm going to let him go on this. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, we're trying. I think what Rob's asking is about when that player can be released when the penalty's over. Is that what you're getting at?
No, I'm just saying, when does a face-off conclude? So yeah, so in this scenario, I'll give it to Chris. If a whistle blows, right, we have, generally speaking, technically not. Yeah, so let's skip that one. We won't get technically off. Where else? So it's the ball is possessed. Where can the ball go then as well? What 2 areas? We'll stay on that one. What happens if it goes over this? Okay, let's do out of bounds. If it goes out of bounds, we've now concluded the face-off, right? And so again, out of bounds is the sideline here. If it goes over the restraining line, what happens?
It's
over.
Yep, we've concluded. So now we play. Everybody's released. We have a melee, right? We have a loose ball going in the box, and now it is essentially a 6-on-6, not including the goalie within that side. Within that penalty, I'll give John's point, is that if we have a technical foul, that's this one. In the scenario, if we had a face-off violation, or let's say blue player gets pushed, right? And it's going to be blue's ball on this A. So we have our technical foul. Let's say the ball is loose. So we go tweet, 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 tweet. We have a loose, we have a push. It's going to be blue ball. The face-off has not concluded in that scenario. So all of the people are still restrained by their lines who are not in the face-off. So these additional 7 players, 3 on red, 4 on blue, including the goalie, and these 7 have to stay behind the line until you blow the whistle and that ball starts in somebody's stick, and now we have possession, and that is what concludes the face-off. Very tricky technicality. I'm reading John's brain.
I have a question about face-offs.
Yes.
When someone does gain possession, or when the face-off is over, do you guys do something mechanically to like signal that to the restricted players?
We do. That's the only thing I skipped on the slide, and you called me out for it. So you're my least favorite student right now at this point.
And you're my favorite student. So okay.
Yes, we do, and we can all do it together, right? So we have possession. It is a full wind of the clock.
And it's a backstroke, not a forward stroke.
Correct, right?
Don't
so we go up,
swim.
up and back. Yep, up and back, not the woo, up and back, right? So
And
same as, yep, same as when we start the clock for the whistle, right? When the ball's in bounds.
And I know I'm getting a little in the weeds on the face-off, but you
You're
said
okay.
which way can they go? If you're man down and you win it, and it's still on your side of the ball, you can go back to your defense. But once
Yep,
you step over, you cannot go back.
Technically, yeah, we won't get super over that, because then they to allow your weeds question. They can go over and back as long as they haven't gone into the attack area. Once they go into the attack area, now it activates the over and back, if that makes sense. But within the high school game, once you cross that midline, for everybody else, you can hear Muff right now, we have 10 seconds to then get into that attack area. We have a timing mechanism. So you can go all the way back to your goalie, but you only have 10 seconds to get it back in the box. So it's a very rare that you will see high school players backtrack college game a little bit more different, right? Where you will see, especially upper level teams, where if they get jammed and they have good 15 seconds on the shot clock, they'll work backwards to move forwards, kind of deal. I always say it makes a lot of sense too in soccer, where you see if you get jammed up close, you'll actually move the ball back to the defenseman to work it around and then come back in the other way, if that makes sense. So just on the timing side, you see it pretty rare, especially on JV games. They are laser focused or just full blinders is probably a better way of putting it. Of all I got to do is get in the box. There's nothing else I could do besides run through this behemoth of a 6'2" freshman. That's it. They will run through the biggest kid on the planet because they don't know any better, right? And it's not making fun of them. It's just that's what it coach said. I need a touch, so I need to go do it. Make sense on that?
Now, a couple added points real quick with regard to the possession piece. You asked about the signal. So yeah, you're making that signal. You're also verbally saying possession on the initial possession off the face-off. If the ball is loose and crosses those restraining lines, you're doing the same signal, but you're saying play. And that releases the players as well. So possession will release those players behind the restraining line, as well as the ball going across the restraining line and you saying play. Those are things that also will release a player who's in the penalty box whose penalty has already expired. In other words, his penalty, if the faceoff's taken a while, ball's moving around, his penalty's to 0, he can't just run out on the field. There's got to be possession or it has to go across the restraining line where you say play, then he can come on the field, the player whose penalty has expired. And that was what missing from this slide. It says if the penalty time has expired but no possession has been signaled, the player must remain in the box until the official signal possession or signal play because the ball has crossed the restraining.
And think simply, that's a safety precaution, right? We don't want that player who's generally unaccounted for running out of that box at full speed to go smash somebody, right? The ball squirts here. There's 2 blue players and a white player, right? And they're just focusing on that one white player. The last thing we want is somebody coming out of the box very quickly, unaccounted for in a loose ball scenario.
Is that something we should remind the table, especially in a 2-man JV game, like not to release them until?
Yeah, and that's it becomes, I don't know why I've like I have stories on it. I don't know. I probably like booted 5 to 6 people in my career, and that was one of them. Like a youth coach lost their mind, and we repeatedly told them it's a safety scenario. Your player will tell you when your player can leave, right? And then as soon as you blow the whistle and the kid runs out, and you're like, nope, just the other team's ball, right? And then the coach goes ballistic. I don't understand this rule. Coach, it's a safety rule. Like I'm not making it. So yeah, so on the lower levels, again, you may play, in my opinion, you may play a coach once in a while. You're allowed to do that, right? Because it's about the safety of the game and getting the game off to that exact point of in a JV game, there's no harm, no foul, especially if you don't have a table person, believe it or not, to remind them, hey, you have to wait until our arm goes and we yell possession for you to release. I will one up them sometimes in a JV game. I will tell you when you're released, right? I will say possession, white is released, and I'll say it all in one shot for them. So that way there's no confusion on it. We got the safety, and no team feels like they're disadvantaged by not knowing when they go on.
I make it a habit on a man down face where there's, 20 seconds left on the penalty or less than that of just reminding, just saying over to the table, to the coaches, just remember the player can't come on even though the penalty's expired unless there's possession. And you just remind them of that ahead of time. You say it loudly, even at the varsity level, they need to be reminded.
This is a good one. Hopefully this is playing, I'm assuming.
Yep.
So again, you can see this is a 3-man crew, but one comes in, one is guarding the pile. Again, this is 3-man. Got to fish the ball out, right? But running up, other officials already in a spot, right? That's all we're asking for. Little jog. I always call this very lovingly. If you're mobily challenged, it's okay. We're not going to fault you for that, right? You don't need to be a full sprint. So if you're mobily challenged, a little jog is fine. That's it. It looks super clean. We're ready to go, right? The other big one too on the face-off, and we can practice it as well, is if we are in this scenario. So let's say, oh God, John, which way are we running? We're running right, right? Yeah, so we're going this way. So if you're then the trail official in a two-man, God, they mess us up all the time. So if I'm the face-off guy and I'm looking at you as my other official, I only look at you and you tell me if the field's set. You're responsible for the entire field. It sounds scary, but it's not. You're going to make sure there's a couple wing guys here, a couple wing guys here. There's 7 guys in this box. There's 7 guys in this box. I always count by threes. Makes life easier, or twos, right? And so you can say 3 red, 3 blue. The goalie shouldn't be moving anywhere. 3 red, 3 blue. We're good. 2 wing guys, 2 wing guys, 2 face-off guys. And we point to the way we're running. So this means, again, we're paused or we're holding. So let's do nice straight arm up in the air. Go ahead. We can do it. Right? Nice and straight. Oh, somebody's now subbing or the trainer's coming in. So now we're going to put 2 hands. This is full stop sign. Now we got a whole scenario going on. Now we're back to 1 and we're in a yellow light. And now we point. Nice. Our thumb is tucked in and we point straight out 90-degree angle to the goal we're going. So in your scenario in high school, you will always be pointing with your left arm out, right? I, to that same point, will, as we made before, I might take my whistle, right, out of my hand and I might move it, as I said, so I can go here. Because the last thing you want is now we have a scenario and my whistle's out and then I look all weird, right? So super simple points, but nice and clean. All we're looking at is that field is ready for that trail official or the official who's on the wing for the face-off. And again, we'll go over all those mechanics, but always a point I go through. Questions on anything so far? Awesome. So we'll go through personal fouls. We won't do any breakout room, but generally speaking, what are fouls? Somebody give me an answer. What do we think if we had to define a foul? Same thing we did in week 1 to grandma. What is a foul?
Infraction.
And then I'll go a step further. What's a personal foul?
Foul against a opposing player, like directly against a player, not like a penalty.
Yeah, an infraction against another player, right? And so generally speaking, within sports, what kind of personal fouls do we have? Same in lacrosse. What can't we do?
Can't push, can't trip.
Can't trip people. What else?
Can't push them, can't slash them.
Can't slash them. Pushing in our sport is a lesser offense, but it's within your, I will give it to you. And what's
Can't use tobacco products.
I'd see Al jump in. I knew it. I already warned them you're going to jump in. Right?
Do not
And
use
what's
tobacco products.
in a contact sport? What are we most worried about? Where can we hit people? Let's flip it. In a contact sport, where is the eligible part of the body where we can make contact with others?
Front
of the neck.
Right? Below the neck. I always think rugby explains it really well, from the below the pec line to above the waist, on the front, including the shoulders, right? So nothing back, nothing low, nothing high, if that makes sense.
What about the side?
I said including the side, right? Did I just say that? Maybe. I thought Chris Ford just did. I feel like you don't like that. I'm kidding. Yeah, so I always say, again, I use the rugby explanation. Pec line down, waistline up, in the front, including the sides. Good. He muted on me. Okay.
Yeah.
I think we're 1-1. I had a boo-boo, now you had one. So I think we're even for today. We're going to go to overtime. It's a new game. So as I always say, when especially, we don't do this super often, but usually I will have a running joke where I call it the all of the above foul. Is when you know something looks super dangerous and super not good, and the number one way you figure out is if there's any parents in the stand and they make this sound. Ooh, that's an all the above foul, right? Whatever you call it, you call it. We're not making things out of the thin air. But if you feel that it was high, it might have been a cross check, it could have been an elbow, it might have been late, it was too many steps, call it. And then decide what the exact definition is later, right? Throw your flag, protect that player. That's the all the above. That's always my response when a coach asks, well, I don't understand what was illegal. It was all the above, coach. If you have one item you think it was, I'm going to say it was all of them. We've all seen those hits. Those are the big ones that we want to get and not miss. When then we look at personal fouls, there are 3 types of personal fouls to help your brain out. These are the felonies. These are the whales. These are the egregious ones. Yes, we don't want to let pushing go through, but pushing and holding happens in every sport. Look at, again, I'll use the Super Bowl since it was on last night, is when they're in the red zone, everybody is holding everybody. Some are called, some are way more egregious, but if you watch a defensive back play defense, they just have to hold. Same thing in our sport. It's very tough to play defense in sports. So you see some grabbing, you'll see some contact that is borderline. But as we said, if we're getting hit in the head or in the legs, or we're using our stick in a violent manner, this is what we're getting. Illegal contact, illegal equipment, illegal contact. We're just going to do contact for tonight with time side. Somewhere in the, yeah. Thanks, US Cross. Personal fouls, right? We will go through these. We'll show a quick video clip and your definitions. These are good notes if you want. Again, this is all within Rule 5 as well. You just need to know the basics definitions. We did this 1 year on training, and I think you spent 40 minutes describing what a slash was. You know what a slash is. If there is any contact with a helmet, it does not automatically mean a foul, just like holding. If we make contact, we're allowed. The contact needs to go through a certain threshold test in our brains where we know it's bad, then we throw a flag. That's what takes time and experience to learn what is bad. But again, my baseline test is that if grandma makes a sound, probably a foul, 9 times out of 10. If you go, oh, in your own brain, throw a flag. It's my best advice I can give you. Cross check, illegal body check, head and neck, defenseless player, we have that within high school, slashing, tripping, unnecessary roughness. So within the cross check, right, we have a stick. I didn't bring mine out, but we have our stick needs to be between our shoulders to legally push or hold somebody or really hit somebody, right? We want them as close together as possible. When we go further out, now we're going to get all stick on body. That we don't want, right? That's the safety issue. So if it's a thrusting manner, like I'm doing, or holding our arms extended and then we hit somebody, those are the things that we're looking for in a cross check, right? This is a great example. You can just see by the way his face and body language exuding this force, not only to this player's back, but it is all shaft of the stick that is getting that player. I think we have video. If this one wants to play for me, maybe.
I just heard grandma.
Right? They don't always have to fall down. But as we stop it, right, we see where are the players' hands? Are they in close or they're out wide?
They're out wide.
They're out super wide, right? Especially when, and again, lacrosse is a very dynamic sport, meaning it moves fast. It's tough to see everything, right? You just saw this official who's calling this is over here. Really tough to see this, right? But again, if the player is leaning with the shoulder, we have a very different scenarios versus if the player's chest is up or even leaning and we see a stick and a hand out, right? So then we see the impact, right? Knocks the player. It makes your life easier because that player never moved their hands. They're still out 4 feet across, right? We're talking about a 1 foot width at most. That player, I'll show it one last time, makes your life super easy. There's a hit. They turn around. I can now see them. You're 4 feet. We're good here, right? Coach, 4 feet across. Hit him solely with that in a thrusting fashion. We're good. Now, again, our personal fouls can go in increments of 1, 2, or 3. 3 being most severe, 1 being run of the mill, believe it or not, 2 being, we're not in a good place right now. Where would we judge this cross check? 1, run of the mill, 2, not good, or 3, worst hit we're going to have all week.
2.
I'd go 2 because he lined him up, took a running the running start, and then still did it.
Is there any other questions? We're purposely tricking you on this answer. Are there any other questions you want to ask me?
Were there any previous fouls by this guy? Like, is there a pattern?
And then give me one more question from somebody else. What also is going to help determine your call, believe it or not?
Or
Where
Yeah.
on the body?
What's the score and what's the time? Is this the first play of the game? Or is Gray down by 18 and we have 3 minutes left in the game? It might determine our call, right? And to your point, the same thing. We're not going to go through, I would say probably 1, in my opinion, right? He's kind of within 5 yards when he's starting. We can now engage. I think running, you're outside. He'd have to be running from here for me. He's, in my opinion, right, to just be nitpicky. He stops, plays defense. He realized that he needs to help and be the guy. I think now is when he decides he's going to hit him, in my opinion, right? And I think we're within that 5 yards. We're going to use football lines. He's about 3 yards when he decides to hit him. He just hits him in a very bad technique. We can look at the player. Player gets right up, right? We don't want to make a sole determination on that, but player got up, right? Was okay. I think we're generally 1. If you want to go 2 to that point because you think it was egregious or this player has already got a trend going, we throw 2. The nicest thing, anytime besides a 1 minute penalty, we go 2 or higher, we get to talk to our partner. We get to come over, we get to ask them how their day is going. If we get to ask them if they've had any bad jokes lately or anything else, then we get to talk about this player who's ruining our day really quickly, right? And then the same thing, you go, I have 2. I go, okay, I think I would go 1. Tell me why. And then you tell me why. And I go, I agree with you. Go put them in for 2. And we're good, right? But so we get that chance to talk if we think it's more egregious than a run of the mill. Sound good on that one?
One quick point, because this came
Go ahead.
up in prior
Yeah.
years. The penalty has to be 1, 2, or 3 minutes. It can't be a minute and a half. It can't be a minute and 15 seconds. Just understand they're discrete time intervals for the personal fouls.
Excellent. Illegal body checks are more than 5 yards. As we said, they're up high or down low. The player is on the ground. They're ineligible to be hit. On the ground means they have something besides their feet on the ground. A hand, an elbow, a hip, a butt, a back, anything else.
A knee.
A shin, a knee, a shin, anything besides their feet. They're grounded. They're ineligible for being hit. You will see upper level games. They will often wait for that player to stand up, especially the defenseman. They will stand right over them. They're waiting to throw that check. They're waiting. Some really good will try to take a swing. They can hit stick on stick and be fine, but they will wait. That player will pop back up and then they smash them. So also just be aware of that as well. Good players will wait. You can still commit a foul, especially if we're hitting, right, a slashing or things like that. This can still be 1 minute. It could just be the same thing. Player ran in, as we said in that last video, right? Instead of hitting him with a cross check, he gets that player fully in the back. And to Chris's point, we thought he took more than 5 yards on a run. Awesome. Let's get him for a 1 minute as versus just a push, things like that. So again, as John said, and we'll get into technical fouls next week, those are the lesser, those are only 30 seconds. We can always upgrade to a minute or more if we feel that. Within the head or neck scenario too, and this is a rule change this year. If anybody watches college lacrosse, we did it last year within the college game. But if we feel that it is indirect, direct, excessive, I still get the wrong word. It's not flagrant. Excessive, John?
Yeah.
It's
Well,
3?
there's indirect, direct, and excessive or flagrant under the college rules. Yeah.
And so those are our levels. We can then lock in that penalty within one of these other penalties, if that makes sense. So it can be an illegal body check, cross check, things of that nature. So we can then escalate it. Again, within the last video we saw, if we feel there's a tail end that touches that helmet, probably doesn't rise to that. We're talking about finishing within the head or neck area or direct contact to the head or neck. The indirect is the easiest that I like to explain. We start that cross check and then it rides up into the neck area. Now we're going to escalate it by making that a full-time penalty. So that's the one difference this year that comes in. We'll get there, I promise. Gives you an idea. Player comes across, right? Gets hit. We can again see the reaction of the player is different than the last video. Not saying it's good or bad, but essentially when that player comes across, we can see that initially and directly goes to the helmet is the first point of contact. For me, if that's a direct blow to the helmet, we're starting at 2 minutes and we're talking about a 3 or more, if that makes sense. So we set our bar and then we go up. In this scenario, since we're at 2, we're already discussing with our partner. We're going to have our bullet points in our mind, right? Think for anybody who's already officiated before, this is a little bit easier. You're already replaying some definition points in your head. I got direct contact to the head. It's a cross check. He hit him as the first point of contact, and that player stayed down. My brain might say this is a little bit more than run of the mill. Or it might be to that point, that's end of the game, and this player's already at penalties, we might be going full maximum on that penalty. Make sense on all those? Questions on anything?
How many of those maximums or how many of those personals do you get before you kick them out?
There's a 5-minute maximum penalty time for personal fouls, and then the player becomes disqualified. We still have expulsions within our game, but we have a 5-minute personal foul, so technical fouls don't count. 5-minute personal foul counter, then they become disqualified.
And disqualified is like fouling out in basketball.
Very good point.
They're not ejected.
You're done for the game, and that's it. If you're ejected, you serve an additional suspension outside of that as well. Again, somebody described this really well. Every day we're going to have a lot of 1 minutes, not a ton, but we're going to have a lot, right? 1 minute fouls. We're going to have some technical fouls depending on our game. We may encounter a 2 minute. And again, within the week, we might have a 3 minute is where our game is at right now. Depending on your level and things like that, I think JV holds to that same kind of idea. So again, not everything's a 3 minute, but it could be your day where you throw a 3 minute, if that makes sense as well. So don't discard it. Just know that it's more rare. Again, how we've officiated over the last 10 years has really taken those really big hits out of the game. And when there are big hits, we want them super clean, if that makes sense.
The other thing I'll just add real quick, the 3 minute can be a 3 minute without it being an expulsion foul, or you could give a 3 minute penalty and an expulsion.
And then in high school, we have a defenseless player rule. So if they're ineligible to be hit, or if they are currently in a position that is vulnerable, we might discuss defenseless. This now raises our minimum bar to 2 minutes. Think of somebody scooping the ball. Think of somebody who's about to catch the ball. It's called the old buddy pass for anybody who's played on here. That is now out of the game entirely. If I go up and I go to catch a ball and it's a 20-yard pass, and I am ineligible to be hit from the front, from the back, from the side, wherever. No longer those smoke a kid because he's not looking. Here's an example of this one. So the onus of this play, this player is moving this way and is looking this way. The onus is on this player to realize that he is unable to hit him from the front. So as you go back one more time. Very, very slim chance to get him in the front. He's going to get him in the side or the back. In this scenario, he's not looking at him. We have taken the onus off of the offensive player, and the onus is solely on the defensive player to hit a person that is paying attention. Within the scope of this training, we don't care what your old school mentality, if you have one, is. The onus is on that defensive player to not hit him. That's it. That's how our rule is written, and that's all we care about. So with this player looking, and this player is solely coming out of the box, taking, in my opinion, the wing line is 10 yards away, taking a 10-yard run to decapitate this player, and he hits him with an elbow. We have an elbow to that player's head neck. He was not looking. The onus is on him to not even touch him. Believe it or not, he can throw a stick check, and that's about it. This is a great angle. At no point was he looking. This starts at 2 minutes, can go up to 3 very quickly. Blindside, we use defenseless, but you hear the announcer say blindside, hit, those are out of the game. He's not looking. The onus is not on him, and eligible to be hit. Make sense on that one?
It's a great view, Rob, back on the face-off with the wing line restrained until possession. There's exactly what happens.
They're hanging out. That's very, very good. We'll go through a couple more. I know we're at a couple minutes over. Same idea. Now, this to me gets a little nuanced, so I don't try to overly think about it. Is a defenseless player, and then there's a target. Somebody who is, you can see their intention in their body language, if that makes sense. You don't have to get overly nuanced on one versus the other, right? But targeting is, we know in their body language you're trying to inflict injury, if that makes sense, versus that defenseless. The last one I have trouble with, again, knowing the context of the game helps. What's the scenario? What's the time? What's going on? Why did that player come in the box and just cream that kid? They generally don't do it for no reason. We've all played sports. We all know that. In that targeting, this again is a summer ball. I think this one is less egregious than the last one on this video. They like using this video. I'll just go back for you. They felt, again, the video is terrible for this, in my opinion, but they felt this player ran almost 20 yards to hit this player and had a beef with him throughout the other game. That's really tough to tell in that video, right? But that's the backstory they gave for us, so it makes more sense. Where even a less vicious hit, we see somebody not looking, and he goes to clobber him in the head or neck area with a stick up high, can become a target. Again, on purpose, I think a little bit of a nuanced, a little bit subtler of a video, but we can have things like that if we feel that player's body language and that intention was there. Make sense on that one?
On that one, I got a question.
Oh, go ahead.
Like without targeting, like his eyes were looking upfield away from the hit. So can just your eyes, like your line of sight pretty much lead to a blindside hit?
Yeah, we can say defenseless, right? Because that onus is on that hitter, not the hittee in that scenario. So if that player is looking up the field the whole time, you have to get him from the front, right? And again, we don't have to take an entire microscope, right? Because all these are going quick. To that point, it's a very good question, right? But if we feel, hey, that player was really looking up, right? And the last second kind of saw him, he's still defenseless. But if we kind of see him then move, right, his body, like in that big hit video out of the box, if we see that player turn to him and then turn away from him, we have a totally different call, right? Because that player is now engaged and realizing they're about to be hit. So that onus changes and flip-flops a little bit, if that makes sense on that one. Right. Good question, though. Slashing, I think super simple. It's a vicious or reckless abandon. You're swinging your stick. You need to strike the opponent in the head, back, or legs. You can also hit them in the arms. You can also hit them in the glove hand that is on the stick. Generally speaking, by rule, if your hand is wrapped around the stick, your hand is part of the stick. So if you get a piece of that glove, it is not a slash. But if you are teeing off and severely hitting that player's hand on purpose, it's still a slash. It can be called a slash if you feel it's vicious and it's got reckless abandon to it. Now, again, there's going to be thresholds, right? You're going to see ones where it taps a player in the face mask. You might decide to pass on that, depending on, again, the tenor of the game. You might also see ones where, again, we call them the rusty gate and things like that, where a player gets beat and then they're all abandoned and they swing like this. That player's stick is not in control. And even if they tap them on the helmet, I might throw that flag to send the message depending on that tenor of the game, right? Even early. Al has infamously done that. I actually like that. He will get the attackmen who just swing for the heavens because on their ride when they get to the midline because they have no other option. Don't swing it with reckless abandon.
You can even call a slash even if there's no contact.
even if there's no contact.
Even if it's completely reckless and vicious.
In this scenario, I call that the best way to describe that one is if this player now Superman dives in that scenario and misses that player, I'm throwing a flag on him because there's no way that player is in control, and we're not going to allow that for the rest of the game. And we've seen that. They literally just dive and swing. Not happening. Go sit down. Not today. But we make contact. We don't have to, coach. That's it. I feel like all the slashing videos are boring, but we can watch one. Okay. Do we see where he got him? I think this is a fairly normal lacrosse play, right? Just to give you an idea as well. The red player is coming around trying to score a goal. White player is defending him. Notice, I know it's tougher to see, notice where the location of the stick lands. Got a whole bunch of flags. You had a parent who's also not happy within there, right? And then let me just sorry to go back. That's the one where it just hit him right here. This is the one he called. So it hits him right on the.
He gets him again too.
Yeah, he got him a whole times. There's no hard and fast rule. I always explain it this way: of it can be one swing, and he hits him in a spot that I throw a flag. It could be 3 or 4 times that he throws it, and he hits him in a spot, and then I throw a flag. Again, it's based on experience and the tenor of the game. If you feel the player is legitimately attempting to dislodge the ball, fine, right? If that player is, again, getting all back, all arm, you hear that, the easy thing to do is to verbally, not loud, there's a very mixed bag of opinions of veteran officials on this. I will generally warn the player. You don't have to warn them. I will say, control, 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 right? Generally speaking, people have had issues with if you say get stick, because you're now inferring that the first one didn't get stick, which should be a slash. So I like using the word control. Sometimes I'll tell them easy, 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 which usually makes people more mad. But I say that one, control, because you're inferring that I didn't say he was out of control. I just said control, right? Usually the defensemen listen because they're waiting for that verbal cue. They will also test you as well. Maybe not the JVs, maybe sometimes the JVs, but upper level players will generally test your threshold early in the game. They might throw 3 or 4 haymakers real quick to give you an idea of, hey, how are we calling this today? And again, you don't have to be, you need to be consistent overall, but you don't have to be, if you think it's a slash, throw it as a slash. We've seen ones where the same thing, you just get it in a certain spot, and that's the first one, we throw it. Other ones, we might let them go a little bit. To the same point, try to have the same consistency for both defensemen, if that makes sense. Is that if you, not saying pass on a really egregious one, but if that kid was really borderline, we don't want that the ball going down the other end of the field, barely making, a play that's off of the stick, and we immediately throw a flag. That's not fair either. We want to give the same thresholds to both players the best we can. Make sense on those? I think we got one other one. I think we're pretty close here. Excellent. This is the Al Tortorella.
The backslash.
He hits him right here. He hits him on the numbers and all in the ribs. It doesn't seem very hard. Again, within the tenor of the game, pretty simple. That might be an easy one to call.
And the fact that his stick is in the opposite hand where he's swinging.
Right. There's no attempt. Just don't throw it. I will often, really good piece of advice. Not when he throws it, I won't make a comment, right? I'll just say flag down and throw my flag. But if that attackman holds up, I'll say great job. I will every time, because you also want to reward them when they actually make smart plays. And as simple as it sounds, compliment them. You don't have to teach them, oh, great, that was a great ride, really a fit. No, you don't do that. Hey, good job. 13, good job on that. Way to hold up, right? Thank you all. I sometimes just say thank you. I say thank you. And they go, for what? I go, you didn't murder them. They go, oh, thanks. Appreciate that, right? So again, it's simple things like that we can communicate. Tripping to me is kind of easy, right? Is the idea of would he have gone down without the help? I think trip is my least called foul in my personal opinion. For me, is a lot of times, especially at lower levels, players fall down by themselves. They do that. They get hit in the hands mechanically and biomedically. If you get hit in the hands, your feet stop. So just be aware of that, is that if a player gets hit really hard in the hands at a lower level, they might literally fall down on their own accord because their feet stop and they trip themselves. But the easy ones, you hit the back of the leg or you get a can opener and you get a 6-foot pole in between your legs and you trip them. Those are easy. We throw a flag. You can't do that. Like 7 kids on the ground on this one. This is great. Right. So to this point, I think this one is good. You will see him stumble to just go back on you. We see the stumble on the first one when he hit his hands, a little bit of a juke. The last one hits him in the leg. It makes his leg go out from underneath him. So the first ones I wouldn't call. We're okay. We're close. Last one, he now fell down. Right. Anything on tripping? Unnecessary. I think this might be the last video we have. Unnecessary. Again, I use my personal way that I always try to teach people is this, is if your brain, not the grandma goes, oh, if your brain goes, ah, a deep, like embedded sigh of disappointment goes off in your body, that's unnecessary roughness. That's the best way to describe it. Because they made a bonehead play. That's what occurs. It is not needed. That's why we call it unnecessary roughness. It was stupid. It wasn't needed. We could have gone without it. You make that internal sound, we throw a flag for unnecessary. If your brain goes, ugh, that's usually a legal body check. Somebody just got creamed. But unnecessary is stupid, is the best way to describe it. It's after, it is excessively late, right? Again, it is violent contact on a screen. You blow up a screen, could be a punching blow, things like that. Think of what sound your body makes when you see this play. We don't need that, right? Player scores. I think player scores here. Goes to the cage, takes a shot, 1 Mississippi. We're late. We're super late. We didn't need that. Ball's in back in net. We can't cream him. It's not even an attempt at the ball. Make sense on unnecessary? Again, different than a legal body check. The other big difference, unnecessary, we cannot escalate to a locked-in penalty. Unnecessary roughnesses are dumb, so we can't lock them in. Illegal body checks are then become head and neck scenarios that we can lock in. We cannot, if we call it unnecessary, we cannot upgrade it. So make sure, as nuanced as that is, we need to call it based on what we saw. If it was late and stupid, that's one penalty. If it was high and dangerous, that's a different penalty. And then we have different definitions and parameters. Make sense on that?
Hey, Rob, just 2 points on that.
Yeah.
You're going to see that those are mostly your late hits, right? That's where you're always looking for the goal scored and it's a late hit. And then the second point is on the punching blows. Don't go fishing for those because you're going to see a lot of them on the defender moving his hands in and out. They're delivering it with that blow. Very common.
This is the pick. Oh, go ahead, John.
Yeah, and the only thing I would add is you noticed on unnecessary roughness, it talked about an excessively violent infraction of holding or pushing. If you see a guy kind of wrapping his arm around a player and it's a hold and then kind of throws him down to the ground, that's a good example where you would call unnecessary roughness as opposed to just holding, where there's that violent action to throwing him to the ground.
That was a good point. We had on Saturday, same scenario. Player got underneath his helmet, lifted him, so we called an initial hold, and then the player continued going the goal, so the other player literally just bear hugged him and then like sat on him. That's a little bit more than a hold, right? So we called it necessary because he literally just like 2-point takedown him, which was like absurd. So again, to that point, our brains were like, well, that was stupid. If your brain is saying that, it's unnecessary roughness. This is the other one of going through a pick. So again, we're allowed to have picks. Same in basketball.
There's a pick set behind the goal.
Stationary feet.
Watch in slow motion and notice the defender's helmet looks to see the pick. And then
this player looks at him, sees him, keeps going.
The official
doesn't try to go around it.
And this
Doesn't try to avoid it.
penalty of at least
lines
1
him up.
minute releasable.
Stupid. Onus is on that player to get around that pick. Now, there are picks when that player is not looking and they collide. You're allowed to have collisions. Collisions are okay, right? But again, to Gordon, who's doing this video, his point, we can see the player's head get turned around. One last one. Is what he's saying. This defenseman will turn his head, continue running through it. He even gets his hands up. Telltale sign. We'll do conduct next week, but I'll just kind of give the very brief as well. We have different levels of it as well. We have regular conduct penalties. We have unsportsmanlike, and then other things like fighting, which are never allowed within the game, that are immediate expulsions. We essentially, this is where we use we call it the ladder, right? Is that this is our tolerance ladder. It's a really good way to look at it. We want to go one rung at a time if we can. There are days in all of our lives where we would like to skip the whole ladder and just jump as far as we can immediately, but we can't, right? We need to be professional. We need to try to give a chance, right? This goes to everybody, players, coaches, fans, our partners, right? Ourselves, of use the ladder. You have tools at your disposal. Diffuse it, diffuse it, diffuse it. And then if we feel coaches still, and I usually look at more coach versus a player, we might go to conduct. Again, Saturday was a great example. We had a few bonehead plays. Tempers boiled over a little bit. We had a scenario where it was an offside. There was about 40,000 whistles. The attackman caught it, decided to still shoot it. Goalie makes a tremendous save. He had no business making. Offside stick, like caught it, and then runs up to the player. And they both stood 1 inch away from each other and they just stared at each other. Guys, we're done here. And they looked at me and they said, okay, great. That was a great diffusing. I did absolutely nothing. I thought that was going to be a brawl and we are going to have some issues, right? Coach wants a conduct penalty. I go, coach, nothing was said. They walked away. They both got their look in. They're good, right? But we're going to watch it. A couple of plays later, same attackman shoots. The defenseman, again, this is a scrimmage, so they emptied some of their bench, and one defenseman was really excited to be in. Player shoots it and yells louder for the softball field about a mile away to hear it, saying, 40, you suck, go home. Excellent. We're going to blow a whistle. It's a conduct foul. Ball goes the other way. We're good here. Oh, you heard that? I did. We're good here, right? So again, use your ladder, right? Where even in that scenario where I thought I was going to be throwing flags because they were going to headbutt one another, let it play out a little bit. Let them see what they do, right? Is react to what you actually see. Remember, and this is the huge takeaway for tonight too, is we are in a reactionary role. All officials are. We cannot prevent anything. We can understand the tenor of the game and start throwing things once it happened, but we cannot proactively save a player from getting laid out. We can't yell at him. We can't run in and hug him. We can't move him. We can't tell him to look. All we can do is throw a piece of yellow fabric. That's literally it. That's all we can do, right? So we need to understand what we see. We need to digest it, and then we need to react to it. If we can try to diffuse and be proactive in some spots, fantastic. But very oftentimes we can't. So when you need to use your toolkit and your ladder, use it, move those rungs appropriately. They get several chances to be dumb and to be idiots. And a very nice way of saying that, right? Allow them to get to that point. I've had scenarios too. I'm just having a bad day and a coach really gets under my skin really quick. I want to go immediately to the top and get rid of that guy. You can't. You need to move it through. Sound good on all of that? We'll end there. We'll get player, right? Again, it's all about safety and common sense. We're getting the whales. When Joe sends out the mentee, let's call our mentor, text or email him as well. Joe's sending out a couple of them as well. I think he's going to send the full list. I'll remind you on who those are. John and I, and I'm sure Dick and Al will stay on as well to the last person. I'll send out the recap tomorrow. If you have not put arbiter blocks in, please put them in tonight or tomorrow. And if you need help with arbiter, you can stay on as well. Sound good? Thanks for listening. I know there's a lot of stuff. Get in your rule book, start reading them, get through them, and we'll do technical fouls next week.
Enjoy the snow.
and enjoy the snow wherever you live, because it's going to be a lot, allegedly. We'll probably get 0 here in New Haven, but it's fine. Thanks, everybody. Enjoy the evening.
Have a good night. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rob.